Coming up this week on the Digital Lifestyle Show 843, Garry and Richard are here. Richard's back, having a couple of weeks off. We're catching up with him. And Gary's going to be live from a car park, charging his car up and seeing how long it takes to get to 100%. I look forward to that. So we're going to be talking Surface Laptop Studio, new Windows Insider builds, new Macs that have been announced today, some Android news, and lots more. So let's get straight to Garry and Richard. Richard, good evening. Garry, good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
First, before we go to where Garry is, I've got to say, welcome back, Richard, from your break, and you had a birthday as well while you were off.
Yep, half a century, not out.
Excellent. Well done, sir.
Yeah, definitely. So, well done, and well done for making just get to that 8 a.m. making it to a show on a Tuesday evening. That's pretty good. It's 8 o'clock. Not tucked up in bed yet.
No, exactly. I mean, the hall is waiting though.
Yeah. So yeah, and Garry, you don't look like you're in your usual location. You look like you're on the set of Most Haunted, but I'm not quite sure.
Well, I'm actually sitting in my Kia EV6, so I'm busy charging it at the moment. So if I flip this camera around a second, you can see I'm actually in the process of charging my car. So I'm at. I started at around about 20%. I'm up to 34% already. I've since started the call. Charging about 67 kilowatts. Now that actually will ramp up as the battery gets warmer, because at the moment the battery's pretty cold. I only just arrived. So as the battery warms up, it will suddenly spurt into life and start charging a lot faster. So but it's only saying it only take me 47 minutes to get to 100%. So by the end of this program, I should be at 100%.
That's pretty good. You couldn't do that filling up your fuel at Tesco's petrol, could you? While we're doing the podcast, that's probably not recommended.
No, you'd probably finished filling up the car with petrol before the podcast began.
Yeah, that's right. Well, we get teams.
Well, there is that. Yeah. Well, I don't know. I've seen some queues around here.
Yeah, excellent. Well, yeah, we should look forward to finding out more about the car as well as you've had a bit of time with it, because last week you really literally just picked it up when we did the show.
I had, yeah.
And for our video viewers, you'll notice my camera looks a lot better than it did last week. And that's because I'm using the Surface Laptop Studio tonight to do the recording rather than the Surface Laptop 2. And I think the webcam does look a lot better. It looks really clear from here, anyway, from the previews.
Oh, Ian, you only managed 5 minutes before mentioning the Surface Laptop Studio.
Yes, I did. Well, I mentioned it last week quite a bit, to be fair. Yeah. It's in laptop mode at the moment. I've not got the screen pulled forward, but yeah, it's looking really good. The only thing I've done, I've resisted the urge to put on any insider builds. It's still on the release one, which is because my plan was to keep the Surface Go on the Surface laptop on beta, and then just keep this. But there's a lot of nice changes actually on the dev channel, and so I think I want to put those on, but I'm resisting the urge.
Yeah, I think that's wise, to be honest, because the dev channel is certainly getting to be a bit more bleeding edge now, so which is as it should be. But I think, I'm getting to the point where I wouldn't want that near any production hardware, because it's just like it's all the toys are great fun, but it is, as Microsoft has said, it's the new stuff, so it might go bang and explode suddenly at any given time.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the things like the little folders in the start menu and things like that I really like. But anyway, we'll talk insider builds later. So we've got that to talk about. We've got some insider builds. We'll talk to Garry about his vehicle. We had some new builds last week, and I finally solved the problem with the Surface Dial. The Surface Dial that doesn't work with, it didn't work with Windows 11. It would crash. And I don't know how I came across this routine that suddenly started working, so I documented it. But I'll tell you this one. So actually, it is set up on here. So if you go with the Surface Dial, it works fine with Windows 11. But if you try to customize it with your own apps, which you can do. So something like Camtasia Studio, I've got it customized, so this does the transport control, so it jogs forward and backwards and does the split. But as soon as you go into the setting, it crashes settings to do that. But I was in network settings and you know the setting that the paging settings that shows you what app utilization, how much data they've used. So like Chrome has used like 5 gig or whatever. I was in there and I went back to the settings, the wheel, and it worked. So, I customized it all, worked, and then I went out settings, I went back to it later, and it stopped working again. Oh, that's a bit strange. So I went back to the network settings, went to the wheel, it worked again. So for whatever reason, if you've got a problem with the wheel, if you go into the network settings, type wheel, open the settings, you can do what you want, it works. As soon as you come out of that settings, then you've got to repeat that process each time. So there must be some weird entry point bug in the wheel settings. They have fixed it on the dev channel actually, but not on the release one. So there you go. I don't think there's that many people who got the Surface Dial. Microsoft don't really talk about it anymore. I don't think they even sell them anymore.
Yeah, it's almost like a callback to the creators era, wasn't it? It's a shame.
Yeah,
it's a good device, I think.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, but even the like the new Surface app that shows you all your devices doesn't show the wheel.
Oh dear.
Yeah,
that's not a good sign.
No. Actually, have you seen the? Well, you won't, if you've not got Surface, you won't see it. But the new Surface app is quite good. It shows you all your devices, whether not just the device you're on. So I'm on the Laptop Studio, but I can actually see the status of my Surface Go, and I can see the status of my pen, and I can see the status of my laptop. It's because you sign into the actual Surface app with your Microsoft account, and then it shows you all your Surface devices, even if the device is switched off. So you could check, say, the warranty information or the serial number from the Surface app, but you don't have to go to the actual one you want to check. It's all in one app now. So it's quite a nice little tool on that. And it shows you the pen status and your earbud status, that kind of thing. That's one thing I did notice with the pen as well. It's got Microsoft, I think they call it smart charging. So it doesn't charge the pen all the time. It optimizes the charging of the pen. So sometimes it'll say charging, sometimes it'll say smart charging paused, which I think we talked about last week, Gary. But there's a reason why you do that, isn't it? That it's about optimizing batteries.
Yeah, indeed. They're supposed to be getting a lot better at optimizing the battery usages.
So that's good. That's quite good. Yeah. So I'm quite happy with my Laptop Studio. I've done the initial unboxing, but I've got to do the next one, which is after I've spent some time with it. I've done quite a few videos with it, and it's sort of about half the speed of the Laptop 2 to render a video. So a 10-minute video, or a video that took 5 minutes to render on a Laptop 2 takes about 2.5 minutes on the i5 version. I've read a few reports saying it's a bit slow for this edition of processor, but yeah, it's good for me. I know that you can get the faster the i7, but I'm definitely not looking at that. I don't need the separate GPU, so I think the i5 one works better for me. Best thing is that all my virtual machines run now without running out of RAM, which is really what I wanted. So I don't have to keep. I can actually run Windows 11 virtually properly now, but have two machines running at the same time, that kind of thing. Which is good. Yeah, so quite enjoyed my Laptop Studio. I'll pick up perhaps another video of that soon. So I should say, Gary, how are you finding your car then? So it's a week now, isn't it? That you've had it.
Yeah, it's a week, exactly a week. Found the first issue with it. My neighbour was getting rather fed up. The alarm kept going off, but they fixed that today.
Nice.
So that's good. So apparently it's an over enthusiastic internal sensor, which they've now fixed. And that's apparently affecting a lot of cars out there, not just Kias. So there do seem to be some real issues around components at the moment. I think I mentioned this last week, but there's definitely a big issue around heating elements in lots of cars. The I-Pace is a lot of people I know have had faulty heating elements, and I've heard Kia people say they've had it, and Hyundai people say they had it as well. So there seems to be some. I don't know if because of this desperate shortage of components, they've been getting components which aren't as good as they perhaps should be. Maybe the quality control's gone down a bit because they're trying to rush stuff out. I don't know, but there do seem to be. It's a bit like the quality control on Windows releases. It's definitely has been suspect at times. But no, it's a great car. Really enjoyed driving it, and the range is very, very good. Had some couple of long journeys in it. Charging is just unbelievable compared to what I used to get on the old car. It's it's charging 107 kilowatts at the moment, and it's still showing me at the moment I've got a cold battery. That's one of the things. It's the displays are very good in this car. It shows you everything which is going on, so I can actually pop onto the right screen. Hopefully I can get my camera to swivel around. Go. Hopefully, there you go. Yeah. So you can see that it's got a little indicator on the battery there, sort of showing a snow symbol or snowflake symbols. So it's still cold, the battery at the moment, although it has charged to 50% quite rapidly. So that's good. So we're getting there.
Are those solar panels or photovoltaics in the image there of the car?
I actually don't know. Sorry, the camera's just gone on, but they call it the wave. So I think it's just some fancy graphics, basically.
Okay. It's quite cool. I thought,
it shows it sort of goes progressively illuminated as you drive along, so it's quite good on that in that respect. And on the right hand side, which is at the moment covered by that indicator on charging, there's an indication to show you how much your battery is being used and how much it's been charged, and that center indicator there is actually showing which wheels are being driven by the motors, which motors have been driven, sorry. And that's interesting because this is an all-wheel drive version, but most of the time it's only running in rear-wheel drive. It kicks in the all-wheel drive when it needs to for an extra bit of kick, or when it needs a bit of traction, which is really good for battery usage. So yeah, I'm getting a real world about 250 miles out of this on a single charge, which is pretty good. I'm quite impressed with that. I mean, it's rated at over 300, but you're never going to get that. But that's sort of with combo motorway driving, etc. So yeah, pleased with that, and I'm pretty pleased with this charging speed, although they do rate it at much higher than 120 kilowatts. So I think the problem at the moment in this weather, it's actually really difficult to get the battery up to a temperature which is usable. And I know there's talk, there's a software update coming to actually preheat the battery as you arrive at a charger, because this has got a battery heater, so they should be able to do that. In fact, he's actually using the battery heater now to warm it up as now we've got here. But if it was to start doing that 15 minutes before you arrived at the charger, it would be much more effective. But yeah, it's a really good car. It drives well. I love some of the nice little touches in it. It's like it's got a wireless charging pad, and if I accidentally leave my phone in the wireless charging pad as I switch the car off, it tells me I've left my phone in the wireless charging pad. If I happen to leave passengers in the rear seats, it tells me that as well.
That's quite handy. But so many times you've left the kids in there for a few hours and thought, I better go back for them.
And it's other things like when you, I don't think I'll do it now because I'm parked, but when you do things like adjust the lights, you know, all these stalks, sometimes you never know what they actually mean. Actually, it's not going to do it for me while I'm sitting there, but it pops up on the display what you've actually set them to, which is quite nice. And so sort of like windscreen wipers, it tells you what position you've got your windscreen wipers on when you use the stalks. So if you can't work out what you've done in a stalk, it does it for you. And other things like, obviously, I think I've mentioned before, when you put the indicators on, you actually get a view of what's around you. So you don't when it's parked with the battery on, charging on, but it actually shows you a camera view of what's coming up the sides. So blind spots are very easy to avoid. All these not on nice mod cons.
There must be people very confused around you saying, why are his lights going on off? And why is this?
What's this guy doing?
For the charger? Does he need help? He's the Kia. He must need help.
Who's he talking to?
Honest, I'm the only person on this chart. It's just a bank of chargers here at the moment. So it's good. Always a good thing to charge latish at night. Not so many people around.
And this is a charger that looks like a shopping centre type. Is it car park, shopping centre car park?
No, this is actually the services at Peterborough. So this is the extra services. I'm only really using these chargers is because I'm getting a very good discount deal through Kia on using Ionity, because normally Ionity is one I avoid because of the cost of the charging, because they tend to be way more expensive than other people's chargers. But with the Kia deal, because Kia are part of the Ionity group, it's 25p a kilowatt for me to use this, which isn't too bad. it's actually cheaper than home charging can be at the moment with the energy charges going up. Although I still do get a very good overnight rate. But yeah, it's we're charging the other car on the home charger, so and we've got two long journeys tomorrow, so getting to the point we need two home chargers.
Yeah, I suppose that's the next thing, isn't it? You know, we've gone from having getting you one charger in to then with multi-car family, then yeah, you've got to look at multi-chargers.
Yeah, and this is quite unusual. I mean, and it's primarily because I've been playing with this car quite a bit this last few days. So I've done quite a lot of longish journeys in it just to try it out and do some videoing and stuff. So normally I just top up charge during the week, so I'd only plug it in overnight and wouldn't need to be constantly charging both cars. So it is quite unusual. We need to charge both of them at the same time, but it is going to, I guess, become the norm for your families going forward, because there's an awful lot of families with two cars, aren't there? So I guess at some point those will be two EVs.
This could cause a lot of marital issues. You unplug my car to plug your car in. And you go in the morning when you find your car's flat.
Yeah. Yeah. So interestingly, the snowflake has just disappeared from that battery indicator, and charging is starting to ramp up again. So we'll see how high it gets. A few minutes, you can sort of see it's flicking up to 130 now, and it'll keep going up slowly as it gets warmer. But yeah, and it should be able to do around about 240 kilowatts, which is pretty quick. But by the time it's got up to that, I'll have reached 80%, and then charging does start to slow down. So it's and that's one of the things you really shouldn't need on a rapid charger. There's not a lot of point in charging to 100% normally because it slows down so much. Although in this car that's not quite the case. But you can see it's going to take another 6 minutes to get to 80%. But it's still saying it'll be 31 minutes to 100%. So it's from 80% to 100%. It's 25 minutes compared to actually I've only been on here about 20 odd minutes already. So it gets significantly slower once you reach 80% on most cars. 80 to 90%. And one of the complicated things, it always used to be 80% because that with a full size battery pack, that's roughly where it is. But most manufacturers now put a top and bottom buffer on, so you don't charge to full and you don't empty completely, because that helps preserve the battery life. So a lot of them will still fast charge past up to about 90% now. So it's a little bit, you can't say it's a hard rule it's 80%, but certainly around 80 to 90%, they will start slowing down quite a lot on their charging speed. But yeah, at the moment it's doing quite nicely.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's the other thing. It's a lot of technology, isn't it, in a car? I wonder how some people get on potentially less tech savvy that want an electric car, but would they find all that a bit too overwhelming and too complicated?
Yeah, I think there is a risk of that, and I think there needs to be simplification. I mean, we've said before. I mean, the whole charging networks need to simplify their interfaces. This one isn't too bad. It's fairly plug blip with the card and it starts charging. But a lot of them are very complicated to get set up. I mean, this car you can just drive, and you get in and just drive it, and it's not too bad in that respect. But if you want to play with all toys, you have got all toys to play with.
Yeah, I suppose that you can. Yeah, you can just dive in and play with it, or you can just leave the defaults on there. Yeah, and I mean, it certainly drives really, really, really well. It handles really well, and with the four-wheel drive, it grips exceptionally well. It's a very good driver's car, as well as being obviously fairly economical and not using petrol, which at the moment is a very good thing. Yeah, definitely. Right, well, let's go. Well, we'll see how you get on with your charging as we get through the show.
Yeah.
Now, I got the new Surface. You've got your new car. Richard, when do you pick up your new Mac Studio?
I've given Apple enough money in the last few weeks. I'm not picking up a Mac Studio. I had to buy. I knew that a new iPhone was inbound because I had to get myself an iPhone 13 Pro, which meant they were bound to release a new phone imminently. So, but no, I shan't be buying a Mac Studio, even though I have to say it is an impressive bit of kit.
It is. So this was just there was an Apple event today. It looks expensive, but I think as ever, you pay for what you get what you pay for, don't you?
Exactly. But I mean, is it expensive considering the market it's aimed at? I mean, it's obviously, I think it's less than the Mac Pro, isn't it? I think. But it looks like a heck of a beast. I think it runs either an Apple M1 Max or an M1 Ultra if you're feeling very, very spendy. Yeah, you can, I think, specify up to 8 terabytes of SSD storage, 128 gigs of RAM. I mean, if you're going down the Ultra route, you can go for a 64 core CPU, which I think is that just 2 M1 Maxes bolted together. I can't remember, something like that, I think. But yes, it's a heck of a machine. It looks a bit like sort of 2 Mac Minis stacked up on each other.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? Yeah.
But it's it is a beast of a machine. It's got a load. It's got a sufficient ports as well, which is always nice to have. And I think it starts about $2,000 for the M1 Max version. I think $4,000 for the M1 Ultra, which again, considering where it's aimed at, isn't actually that bad. But also considering they launched a cheaper screen today as well, didn't they?
Yeah, is that the studio display?
Yeah, that's the 27-inch, because I think that's a 5K display. Still not touched though. But yeah, it's a good bit of kit, you know. It's called Studio Ian, so I don't know. I mean,
maybe I need one of those to go along with my laptop studio. I could have that on the desk.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to say it because I'm no massive Apple fan, but I've been running the base level 8 GB M1 Mac Mini for quite a long time now, and it's I can't really fault it. It's incredibly quick. It runs all my stuff incredibly fast, and will also run Windows on ARM faster than any device I've come across for running Windows on ARM. So it's I look forward to seeing this. And I mean, initially it looks pricey, but possibly not considering what it's aimed at. But maybe I'm out of touch.
Yeah, incidentally, I was using the new share button in Teams, but I don't think it was actually sharing the screen then, was it? I don't know whether you could tell from, I don't know, Gary, you could tell from your phone, but I used the new share button that pops up when you hover over the window, and I don't think it was actually sharing then. But anyway, yeah, it looks they both look nice. Device, we always they always make nice hardware. That monitor does look very nice. It would go very well with a Surface Laptop Studio because it's Thunderbolt 4.
Indeed. I mean, I do keep wishing that Microsoft would just release the Studio screen by itself, and that would, I think, trounce most things. But yes, so the screen itself, I think it's called the Studio display. I think it's 5K. I think it's got basically an iPhone built into it, or the chip from an iPhone built into it to drive things like it's got a decent ultra wide camera and lots of ports in the back too. So it's effectively like I think a mini phone really. In terms of the chips inside, it's got an Apple chips running it. So yeah, it's impressive kit. I shan't be buying one because I can't justify it. And frankly, for my purposes, the M1 Mac Mini is still a ball of fire compared to most of my other PCs. Yeah.
I did figure out the share, and I think I need to click share and then share again. They certainly look. They do look nice. They're the powerful processors, and you said it will run ARM virtual. It should run Windows on it pretty well, actually. I guess you could virtualize Windows on there, can't you, and run it on.
Exactly. Way. Yeah. I mean, the way I run Windows is, as you know, I use Parallels to run Windows 11 in a VM session, which shouldn't work, but does at the moment. I guess until Microsoft decides to finally lock things down, because obviously Windows and ARM on a M1 Mac is quote not a supported scenario, but it does work well. I'd say almost embarrassingly well, because as I say, I'll run it in a VM on an 8 GB M1 Mac Mini, and it's like a ball of fire. It really is. It's really quick, really impressive. So yeah, maybe that's a bit embarrassing. I don't know.
Yeah, it's the nice kit. Was that all that was announced? Was it
no, there was other stuff too. They've given the I think the iPhone SE which is the kind of we call it bargain basement. It's still $429, I think, for the basic 64 gig version, but that got an update. So that's the price has gone up from $399, but it's now got, I think, 5G, and of course it's got I think it's the A15 chipset. And really, a lot of stuff that's on my iPhone 13, except the camera is still just the 12 megapixel camera on the back. So, which was why I got the iPhone 13 Pro, because I was after the decent camera, because I was very tempted by an SE, because of course the joy of the SE is it's still got Touch ID, whereas the iPhone, whereas the iPhone 13 Pro is Face ID, which still doesn't work properly if you're wearing a mask. It just doesn't work. It's ridiculous why it doesn't work, and the fact Apple is sticking with it when almost everyone else has got alternatives. Apple still make you do Face ID, and it just doesn't work properly.
Yeah, it's surprising that they didn't address that. Maybe it's just too late now, and it's not worth in the cycle of devices to go back.
Well, exactly, yeah. I mean, Apple's take as well. It should unlock if you're wearing the Apple Watch, and it should spot you wearing that. Therefore, unlock if it's using a mask. But I mean, I've got the watch. It doesn't. It's not reliable. I've got very good at keying in my PIN very, very fast.
Yeah.
And I should also point out the reason I got the iPhone 13 Pro is because I had a 10s, which I was very happy with, and I began having problems on telephone calls. And what happened was the phone is working perfectly in every way apart from cellular calls. So it's not an iPhone, it's an I. The phone bit has stopped working. Everything else. And of course, Apple's take was, well, you could just use FaceTime for your phone calls. It's like, no, I can't. I really can't do that.
Yeah,
so data's fine. Cellular, not fine.
Oh, so it's an iPod.
Exactly. It's turned into an iPod. That's exactly what it is. It's now an iPod.
Yeah. So you had to, of course, get the 13 Pro, though.
Well, yeah. I mean, I really wanted the because you get sort of sucked into these ecosystems with it's just very convenient to stick with the same brand. And I had a good hard look at the latest Samsung Galaxy S, the 22 and 22 Ultra, which are, I mean, they're okay, but they're really expensive as well. And I couldn't be bothered to go through all the hassle of trying to set the thing up for a phone that's about the same kind of price as going down the Apple path again. I did want to get the SE, but I use the camera such a lot, and you do get used to things like optical zoom, which the SE doesn't have yet.
Right. Yeah. I know I mentioned this before, but my wife has got an SE, and she's perfectly happy with that. She doesn't get very well with the fingerprint reader, but apart from that, everything else worked great, and she's quite happy with that. So I think even if that broke, that's what she would want the same again. She's not interested in getting the giant sort of one. The photos that she takes just aren't really worth buying the Pro model.
Exactly. I mean, I would say unless you're particularly keen on the camera, which I was, the SE is more than enough phone for most people. Again, my wife also has an SE, and she's really happy with it. So yeah, whereas I'm a bit fussy about my photographs.
Yeah, I don't know what you mean. Yeah, but yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, so well,
so there was. I mean, there was some other stuff there as well. I think they've have they not also shoved in the M1 chip? Has that gone into the iPad Air now? I think as well.
Oh yes, I think you're right. Yeah, I did.
So that they've also tweaked the iPad Air and stuck in the M1 chip, and again 5G if you go for the cellular version. So a few nice tweaks, but I think the major thing is definitely the Max the Max Studio, which is a nice bit of kit.
Yeah, it is. It definitely is. Yeah, and actually it makes a big difference to, especially when you get a new device like that. And you've got plenty of power and everything, it makes a big difference to your workflow, I think, sometimes. You can feel the difference.
Go on, Ian. Mention the Surface Studio laptop again. Go on.
Nope. I'm just looking live over at Gary's charging there. What are we up to now? Your charge rate is slowed down to 38 kilowatts. Is that because it's nearly full?
Yeah, well, as I said, once you get past that 80 on this car, it's about 87%. Then it starts to slow down rapidly. I mean, although 36 kilowatts I would have actually been quite happy on the iPace getting that even halfway through the charging. So I think it's still very rapid comparatively, and you can see we've hit 90% now, but it does still say 18 minutes to 100%. So you can see how it gets slower and slower as it gets towards that 100% mark, which is sort of my top tip to people who are driving EVs and haven't ever driven an EV before. If you're using rapid charging, sort of ultra rapid charging, like these Ionities, like the chargers you find at Lidl's and Pod Point chargers and install chargers at McDonald's, all of them will have this issue where on the DC charging on CCS, because it gets the battery warm. It's very difficult to get the electrons into the battery at this point. There's not much room to squeeze them in. Someone described it as like a theatre where all the rows fill up. So initially, when you go into a cinema, you can find a seat really quickly, or you can find your seat really quickly. But as the rows all fill up, it becomes much more difficult to find your seat, a free seat. And that's basically the same thing with the batteries. And also they start getting warmer, and all sorts of things start happening. So it's not really worth your while staying on a charger past 90%. Other than if you're doing a podcast and sitting here all the time, but normally if you wanted to get on the road, the best strategy is to charge to around about 80%, run it down to about 20%, and charge it back up to 80%, and you'll be able to do that on this car in less than 20 minutes. Which is usually far less time than it takes to walk to the services and walk back, use the facilities and walk back. So yeah, that's the way charging works, and I think you really do have to think of it differently on when you've got an EV. It's not the petrol pump mentality. You tend to do other things while you're charging. Normally you charge overnight when you've got plug it in like you do your phone. Go to pull up, plug the charger in, forget about it basically. And it's very rarely you'd actually go out to charge. I normally would only do this sort of thing on a road trip. But partly wanted to show you charging tonight, so that's part of the reason I'm out. Partly obviously the car charging. But interesting is we're now up to 247 mile range, 248 miles, which means we've added over 200 miles to the battery since I started Discharge. So that's pretty good. At 25p a kilowatt. I'll do the maths in a little while. Work out exactly how much that's going to cost us.
Okay, good. Right, moving on to some other subjects I have for tonight. Actually, while we were talking phones, did you see that Google's kind of now officially announced Android 12L is coming out? I think they've talked about it a few times, but it's actually now been released. I don't know that, not being a Android user too much, Richard, you probably wouldn't have seen this too, but yeah, Android 12L is coming, and they mentioned specifically that it's coming to Microsoft devices before the end of the year. So this is Android's optimized OS for large devices.
Yeah, well, I think it's optimized for foldables, isn't it?
Yeah, foldables and bigger screens.
Yeah.
So like you can see on this one now, when you pull down the notification shades, if I do it on my Duo, it just pulls down on the side that you swiped on. If I did it on that side, it would do it on there. But with 12L, it uses both sides of the screen, so you've got your quick launch, your quick settings on one side and your notifications on the other, things like that. But I think probably what's more interesting is how apps you can optimize them to be run side by side and that kind of thing, and apps are more content aware or screen aware.
Yes, I mean, certainly, for the Duo, you'd have them side by side, because having apps spread across the two Duo screens does look a bit odd with that big sort of gap in the middle.
Yeah, and I think this
side by side is great. Yeah,
and this Android 12L understands. I mean, a lot of things that the Surface does this already. It's just that Microsoft have coded that, and I think this is sort of being baked into the operating system, so it should make it more efficient, and not every app has to be optimized specifically. It can just be part of the OS. So they talked about that coming later this year, so I presume we'll probably see that around sort of October, November time for the Surface Duo. Also, talking of Android, did you see that the Windows subsystem for Android has just been updated with some new features? So I've just posted the article on this. So
oh yes, yeah, this is things like video hardware decoding stuff, isn't it? Some network tweaks.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So video hardware, so H.264 decoding is built in. So I would imagine that means you get smoother video playback.
Yeah.
Especially if you've got something that's high definition. I haven't actually tried installing Netflix on it and then see when that works. The only video application I've used was my Arlo camera application, and that's not particularly HD. So they've made some network changes, mail integration. I noticed that actually the subsystem works quite well with default device, the default applications. So your default mail client or your default browser or whatever. It understands Windows default settings. So if you click on a Mail to link in an Android application, it understands that in Windows how you've got that set up. So if you've got it set up with Outlook desktop version, it'll work with that. If you're using the built-in app, the Mail app, it'll use that. So it actually understands, and all the applications seem to understand the built-in Windows default applications, which I actually thought the emulated Android OS would handle that, but it actually passes it back to Windows, which makes sense as well. But yeah, they mentioned video playback apps may still be chopping on certain systems. So what they give you with the update, they take away with the known issue. It's still only available for US installations as well, unless you fly your laptop over to the US, change your region settings, and then install it. You still have to use a third-party tool to install any apps. If you've not got a US Amazon account, you do need a proper functioning Amazon account. But I have seen there are a few tools in the Microsoft Store. I think one's called WSA Tools. It's a third-party tool, and actually I think that's pretty full-featured for that. You just install that, and you can essentially browse and just right-click and install APKs on there and install the Android apps. So it's pretty flexible. So I still think it's a great idea. I'm not sure what the use case is for. I think I mentioned I used the Arlo app a few times. I've used the Philips Hue app, which I do find quite handy for doing the Philips Hue, but I can't think of that many occasions where I need to open an Android app on Windows 11. But it's there, so it's okay.
Yes, and I guess it's the same old use case that if there's that particular Android app which you just can't get to on the Windows desktop because there's either no web version or a Windows desktop version, then yes, it makes sense. But as you said, there's not that many of those around. Just lots of Arlo stuff and home automation stuff. Yeah, definitely home automation. I've found that I did try to install. I got my Raspberry Pi 400 set up on here with Windows 11, and I thought, wouldn't it be great if I could get the Android subsystem for Windows 11 working on Windows on ARM? But the Raspberry Pi 400 doesn't support virtualization. But it's quite a limited system, to be honest.
Yeah, but I thought it might. I thought, but I know it's you never know. I thought it might work. It didn't, but I did do actually a new video guide and a blog post actually to go with it, how to install Windows 11 on a Raspberry Pi 4 or 400, because I found a new tool. Well, actually, it's the same tool I used to use, but it's now in the Windows Store. It's now called Deploy, and you can just get it from the Microsoft Store. You plug your USB drive in, you give it the install file, and it deploys it directly to the SSD drive or to the USB drive, whatever you've got, directly for you. And it's a lot easier than the old. I think you had to download a Win32 application, but this is just directly from store, from GitHub, and the whole process is really straightforward now. So there's not that many steps. So if you get a Raspberry Pi 4 or 400, get a decent drive. I think I've got it up here. Yes. So you need a drive. I've got an 2.2 SSD drive on there, 256 gig SSD, and it works absolutely fine. So again, it's not really, I'm not doing it because I'm going to run my Dixon Industries from it. It's just a thing to try. But I quite like doing it. But it is really easy to do now. What else did we have? Just to mention, a couple of weeks ago we had the Powertoys chat on the show. Have you got a chance to listen to that yet, Richard?
I have not, no.
You'll enjoy that one, I think. Clint was great, and we enjoyed talking to him on that. Powertoys is fantastic, but they released an update for it last week. In fact, Clint did mention some of the features, and I think that were coming. But they've got a new way to find your mouse. I should, if I share.
Is that the crosshairs thing?
No, I'll share my desktop. I don't know that actually this comes through on Teams, but we can give it a try. So there's my mouse, and if I shake it.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Yeah, and then click it. So all you have to do now is shake your mouse, and it highlights it like that, which I really like, 'cause on dual monitors, especially when the dual monitors are not necessarily aligned perfectly how you want them to be, then just shake your mouse and you can find your cursor. I really like that.
It's really useful. I've been using it all day today. It's really useful.
Yeah. And FancyZones has been increased to from 40 to 128 zones now.
Well, I do have
be nothing for you, Ian.
I do have a particularly wide monitor now, so that could be quite handy.
Yeah, especially I think if you've got the wide monitor, that's exactly what you want. I've got this 4K monitor. I use it usually 2 or 4 zones, but 40 zones, you can have 128 zones. Definitely check that out anyway. That Clint's show, if you ever listen, had a chance to listen to that, if you want to know all about Powertoys and how how open source applications fit within Microsoft and fit within Windows as well. I think that was a question you were sort of interested in as well, wasn't it, Richard, about how that all fits together. So he does answer that as well.
Excellent.
We did have some Windows Insider builds last week.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we got the is this build 22567? Yes,
it was. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's not as exciting as some recent builds have been, but yeah, there are a few bits and pieces. If you're plugged into the right power networks, you can use I think Windows Update will now be smart enough to run when you're running on renewable energy. So that's a handy thing. But I think you have to be, is it watt time or electricity map? I think the two partners Microsoft uses. But yeah. That's quite handy. Other than that, I think it's just a few tweaks around the design stuff. There's the open with dialog now is more like a Windows 11 dialog, as it's kind of polishing the interface up, and then they've been I think since then we've had what, 2 is it 2 updates since then where they're just testing the servicing pipeline.
Yeah, there was 2 2 this week. Yeah. Oh, one Friday, one this month. Yesterday.
That must be the best tested servicing pipeline in the world.
It's brilliant.
Unless, of course, that's code for we've put some new stuff on Windows, but we're not going to turn it on yet.
Yeah, and I think in the past they have used this to fix some issues as well.
Yeah, so I'm not quite sure. Well, I'm starting to get a bit leery when they say it doesn't include anything new, and you think, well, why have you just done one? 2 in 3 days. I bet there is something in there that you're doing, but you're just not telling us, are you? And then suddenly it'll be magically turned on. Yeah.
I'd say what I did like was the swipe with 3 fingers, swipe down, swipe back up. The little animation that goes with that when you're using it in tablet mode. I think that's quite nice. In fact, I've just posted a video of that today using the Surface Go. I've sort of got all the changes that have been done with these builds for tablets, and it's looking a lot better now. Windows 11 for tablets users, the dev builds, that is, because you've got the collapsed start menu, the bigger, the collapsed taskbar, the chunky taskbar as well when you swipe it up, and then you can swipe up again to get the full start menu. Yeah, and the things that were left and right, dude.
It did kind of put me in mind of an Android tablet, actually, with the chunkier start taskbar. Although I still think Windows, I hate to say Windows 8 and 8.1 was probably where I felt it was at its best in terms of tablet mode, because that worked really well. Whereas this feels like it's kind of a halfway house at the moment.
This feels more. I'd say it's more of like a three-quarter way house now. Windows 10. Windows 10 was probably a halfway house, and then, well, in fact, no. I suppose, to be fair, Windows 10 wasn't a halfway house, was it? It was just like, yeah, well, we forgot that tablet mode thing now. We're not interested in that. I think you're probably right. This is a halfway house now. We're 50% back to where we were. It's those last 50% take the longest.
Yes.
But I found on the Surface Go, these new tablet enhancements work really well as well. There was something else that was interesting as well, that they didn't really go into any details of this smart app control that will block untrusted or potentially dangerous application and uses some kind of AI to learn how you use your PC, which is going to be quite interesting. But they said they're going to talk about that in the future.
Okay.
But it's there. It's in the Windows security. You can see it's called Smart App Control. I think, again, it only works if you're on a clean build as well. And there isn't currently a clean ISO to try that to build as well. So
no, not yet. Soon, hopefully.
Soon, yeah. Yeah, but anyway, overall, as I usually did the video, and I quite like those changes that they made to that. I also noticed I think it was last week, they released a new server build, which is a VNext server build. I think they said it's labelled incorrectly when you go in, but it's server build. It was 25066. So, and it's been a while since I've played with any of the dev builds or any of the beta builds of server, and I tend to not play with them very much at work. But I noticed this one. I don't know how long it's been the case, but it looks like Windows 11 now if you've got the GUI on in server mode.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
And I don't know how long that was, because I'm sure the last one I actually deployed was 2019 server, and that looked like Windows 10 a bit. But this now looks like Windows 11. So yeah, in fact, if I just, I'll fire up the virtual machine because I've got enough RAM to do that.
Exactly.
Yeah, I was surprised that how much it looks like a client operating system. Well, of course, I can't use the default password of password because Windows Server doesn't let you, because it has security on it. Yeah, so let me. Okay, so there we go. So I'm sharing that for audio listeners. I'm sharing that, but this looks like Windows 11 that I'm sharing here. It looks just like a Windows 11 machine, but it is in fact a server. And there you go. It says 2022, but that's a known issue. It should say VNext on there. And if anybody wants to test this as well, you don't have to. You can download the VHDX of the server builds as well, so you can stick them straight onto your Hyper-V server and create a virtual machine and just use the VHDX. So you don't have to install it from an ISO, but I think they do offer that as well. But there you go. So there's it looks very much like Windows 11. Yeah, so that's the insider builds that I had last week. So let's go back to Peterborough.
Live Peterborough.
There we go.
99%. But as you can see, it's really slowed down now. It's sort of sub 10 kilowatt charging at the moment. But the range has got up. We're now at 270 miles, and I've done the maths. It's about £12.20 to add 240 miles.
£12.20. So that for 200. So that's what that's probably about 40 quid worth of petrol, would it be, say, something like that? No, maybe slightly less. Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, with the petrol, but yeah.
Although I'd say again, I mean, with those kind of figures, you do need to do your spreadsheet and work out costs based on leasing cost or purchase cost or whatever else.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Although I have to say that.
But certainly, the recent increases have definitely tipped the balance.
Yes. And also the contract hire prices on EVs are starting to come down as well now, so that they're starting to become contract hire wise or lease wise. They're getting fairly equivalent with petrol and diesel cars, and especially for companies, it's a no-brainer to go electric. I mean, with the tax regime at the moment, but it's if you're personally purchasing an electric car, yeah, it's hard to justify on cost at the moment still, even with these sort of differences in cost on charging, and even with the astronomical prices we're seeing at the pump at the moment, because they're going to filter through to electric prices fairly shortly as well. So expect to see pricing on the electric pumps going up as well.
Yeah, if they don't get you one way, they'll get you the other.
They would indeed.
It looks like we will reach 100% before the end of the show. So
2 minutes to go. 2 minutes to go. Getting there.
Oh, and something else I did notice as well we haven't talked about, but I noticed on that server build when it came up before as well. Have you noticed on it, some people are getting system does not meet the required specifications as a watermark on where you get the build string.
Yes.
So yeah, that's interesting that they've started to do that now. I haven't seen it on my Surface Go, which doesn't meet the requirements. But I've got it installed anyway. But if I pop back to this survey, you'll see it does say system requirements not met, which is funny because it's a virtual machine from Microsoft. But it probably wants me to give it a bit more RAM. To be honest, I only gave it dynamic RAM. So in fact, it's only using just under 2 gig there. So the server, so it's quite efficient, but. Yeah, I still find it weird to see that, that's a server OS. It looks too much like a client to me. So I think that was all the news stories that I had for this week. Richard, have you got anything else? Have you got any new Lego? I should ask first.
No, I'm still in the process of building the Lego for the Lego Space Shuttle Discovery, the one 7 minutes ago. I'm at the moment building the external tank boosters and mobile launch platform for it. So that's a current project. It's become a bit of a beast. It's about 9,000 bricks or something. It's quite substantial. So yeah, I've done the platform. I've done the big orange tank, and now I'm working my way through the boosters. And then once I've done all of that, I've got to hang a space shuttle off it, which looks quite frightening, if I'm honest. So maybe by next week I might have done a bit more, maybe not. Maybe it'll just be a big pile of bricks and a very sad Richard sitting in the middle of them.
Yeah, if we hear a loud crash in your general direction, we'll know what's happened.
Exactly. Watch out on Twitter.
Hopefully not.
I shall post progress on Twitter.
And is there any glue involved?
No glue at all yet. I mean, I have to say, while doing the top of the external tank, there was a lot of swearing. A lot of the air did turn blue a few times instead of orange, but no glue as yet. But then I am using real Lego parts, so we'll see. As I say, the really scary thing is that enormous space shuttle has got to hang off the side of it, and you think, how's that going to work? But yeah, I'm told it does work. So yeah, wish me luck with that.
And I see there, Gary, is that 100%?
That's 100%, yeah.
Yay!
73 miles range. So there you go. We made it within the length of the show, even though I would not recommend going to 100%.
I would not recommend doing a podcast each week while charging your car now. It's a good use of your time, though. There, it's been efficient use of your time.
Exactly, perfect.
Yeah. And now getting a battery discharge warning on my 12-volt battery because it's charging. It's charging the 12-volt as well. But now it thinks I've got everything's turned on and no 12-volt. So if I turn the car on, it'll actually start charging it a bit better. But there we go.
I'm glad it tells you to unplug so you don't drive down the services
driving off.
Wire.
Yeah, exactly. I envision Gary driving off at this charge point, bouncing them behind him.
Yeah, I do know someone who did that in a car which didn't warn you.
Yes,
name and shame the brand, Gary. Name and shame the brand. Come on.
It was a very old EV. And it was a Type 2 one as well.
In the old refueling days in Formula One pre-2009, when that happened a few times, and and they'd be going down with the pipe down the pit lane, still connected to the fueling hose, still connected. Yeah, I do remember that. Actually, getting very Formula One starts it again. So hybrids are back. A couple of weeks' time, the Formula One's back, which I'm getting very excited. It's nearly back, which is. which I'm really looking forward to. I think all the Drive to Survive show starts back again as well, which I've got mixed feelings about that now. As a long-term Formula One fan, you've got all these new fans coming in and enjoying it, and I'm kind of you're jumping on my thing here now.
Exactly. Just your Johnny Cab car, I'm late, Lise.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right. So, Garry, where can we find you and your videos of your new vehicle?
Well, you can find me on Twitter all the time at Garry with 2 R's WMA, and obviously on YouTube as well. And what is still the iPace Owner channel called YouTube, so youtube.com/iPaceOwner, but it is the EV Owner channel now. Yeah, lots of videos going up that over the next couple of days. I've shown how the Kia Charge card works and the Ionity charging works and stuff like that. And I have to say, anything I mention EV6 on gets thousands of views. It's really impressive to see how it goes. Never had so many viewers.
Fantastic. And Richard, where can we find you and your pictures of Lego?
Mostly on Twitter at Richard_Speed.
Excellent. I'm at iSticks on Twitter, where you can look at my videos on how to fix your Surface Dial for the 24 people that have got those with Windows 11. And other things as well. I did post my Windows 9 video as well, which has got a lot of views actually. I was quite pleased to see that. I have got some more videos coming up, as well as I'm working through the how-to list. So we should be back same time, same place next week. So Garry, you can go home now.
Yeah, I don't think I'll be in the same place next week. I need to charge it. I'll have plenty of charge to last me 3 or 4 weeks now.
Excellent.
See you next week.
Cheerio.
Take care.